Hello, Taylor Ellwood here, and it's been a little while since I've done a live video here on magical experiments. And today I thought that what I would do is focus in on discussing Saturn Retrograde, which has just started up. And I'm not an astrologer. I want to note that very much, but I have been doing a lot of studying of astrology, and particularly the astrology of Saturn over the last I'd say over the last year and change. So, um, right now we've kind of gone into Saturn retrograde, and I think it's really a good time to reflect on your life, reflect on your career, reflect on your boundaries, reflect on your relationships, reflect on the areas of your life where you kind of need to look at, like, here's the agreements I made and here's what's happened with those agreements. Here's what's happening with my life right now. And I will say that, like, right now, that's what I'm doing. It's one of the reasons I've actually been off of YouTube for a while. I've been going through a few life changes, and I realized I needed to take a step back to process those things. This period of time with Saturn retrograde is kind of a further response to that awareness. It's me recognizing, like, oh, hey, you really need to slow down right now and reflect on some of the life changes that you're going through, and some of the transitions that you're planning on going through. I think a lot of times when we look at our magical work, and we look at planetary cycles and things like that, we might be thinking, like, what can I do with this? What can I do? How can I employ this with magic? I mean, I'm certainly one of those people who thinks that way. But right now with the Saturn retrograde, it's probably a really good idea to actually just slow down and say, like, hey, here's this time to just rest, reflect, and consider where I'm at and what it is that I'm doing, and really consider carefully what I want to do to move forward in my life. But also take a look back and take stock of where I'm at and what I've been doing. For me, that's really my own personal journey. That's definitely become apparent. I've recently gone through a change where the person that I was with, we didn't quite work out, and so we've parted ways. And we'll see how things transform with that relationship. I hope that they'll transform in a good way, but for the moment, at least, we're taking space. Um, and I'm really reflecting on that, and reflecting on, like, what are the lessons that I've learned from this experience, and what is it I need to do to grow. And then I'm reflecting on this in relationship to some upcoming changes, because I am looking at taking a couple of big steps forward in my life on the path that I feel called to work on and work in. And it's interesting because today I got challenged on that path in some ways. I was sharing some writing on a site, and I had some people call me out on it, and it made me really think about that. Brent says fanning others to baneful magic would be a good now for enhanced blowback. Yeah, you could definitely do some baneful magic if you wanted to. You could also do some work around boundaries and do some boundary magic. I think this can be kind of a good time, or at least review your boundaries very carefully. Like, what are my boundaries? Where am I at with these kinds of things? What is it I really want to be doing? And you have an extended period of time, I might add, to do this work. I mean, Saturn retrograde just started, and it's going to be that way for a bit of time. I think regardless of what you end up doing, it's also just really a good idea to take stock. And in choosing to take stock of yourself, it gives you a chance to really kind of consider carefully, where do I want to go moving forward? Aaron, if you go to the Magical Experiments University site, you can actually you can actually discover that. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up really quick for you since you commented. And give me a second here. And I guess really it's kind of interesting because for myself, when I go through a life change or a transition, I end up making a choice to I've made a choice to step away from, for example, social media, from some of the places that I go. Aaron, here you go. I'm going to send you the website. Boom. There you go. I learned bifrons can be of Mars with dangerous fuzzy boundaries for the spirit. Then you mentioned, yeah, well, and I mean, I think that's kind of the point of all this. Like with the Saturn retrograde, let's take a look at our boundaries. Let's take a look at where our boundaries are fuzzy. Let's take a look at the areas of our lives where we need to maybe step back a little bit and look very carefully at what we're agreeing to or what we've agreed to. Let's take stock of our decisions and really be present with them, because it's really easy in a period of like Saturn retrograde to kind of continue marching forward without taking that hard look at yourself. And I think that's what Saturn retrograde provides us the opportunity to do. Certainly that's what I'm working through right now. I'm not doing a lot of active magic. And I don't, and I make it as a general rule, I don't do a lot of active magic when I've gone through a life transition that I'm finding I need to turn inward and take a look at things. In my particular case, it's kind of like, oh, a lot's changed in the last couple of months. I went from being in a relationship to not being in a relationship. I'm in the process of transitioning out of a career that I'm in to something else. I'm continuing to work on some other very important projects, but it's like, yeah, let's take stock of where I'm at. Because if I'm going to move forward, especially toward what it is I want to be doing with my life, I really need to make sure that I have dotted my I's and crossed my T's, as I like to say. And so Saturn retrograde is a perfect opportunity to do that, because it gives you a chance to really examine, like, where have I made my agreements? What is it I need to change? What agreements have I made with myself? And I'll also say that for me right now, this is really highly relevant because I'm doing a lot of work around just developing a better sense of awareness for my boundaries in general. Like, where have I abandoned myself? Saturn really calls on us to be aware of that. So Saturn with the scythe kind of like cuts away things. And so Saturn, in my particular case, is kind of like, well, here's where you've abandoned yourself. Here's where maybe you haven't set good boundaries for yourself, or where you haven't spoken your truth, or where maybe a situation turned out a certain way where if you had handled it differently, then it might have gone differently. But like, those are the things that I'm sitting with and I'm really examining in light of some of where I find myself, because it's a case of, how do I take these lessons in this Saturn retrograde period and really pack them in and move forward in a healthy and healing way for myself and for whoever ends up coming into my life down the line? And how do I perhaps, when I'm ready, repair the connection as best I can in a way that is going to be transparent and healing for myself and for the other people involved? These are the good questions to be asking during this kind of period of astrological work. So with that, I wanted to share that, and I also wanted to do a live YouTube video because it's been a little while and I've missed you all, and so I hope that you found this helpful. And just remember to take care of yourselves. Use this period of time to maybe take a step back from your usual magical work and take a look at your agreements, the agreements you made with yourself, the agreements you made with other people, and ask yourself, am I in alignment? Am I in integrity with myself? Am I in integrity with my values? This is a good time to do that because Saturn will definitely call you to the rug if you're not. And I know that from personal experience. So I share that with all of you. And thank you all for watching. Take care.